All right, Tiger Nation, cinch up your saddles and let's take a ride deep to the heart of Texas. The Clemson Tigers, the Texas Longhorns, round one of the college football playoffs coming up at 4 p.m. this Saturday from Darrell K. Royal Stadium down in Austin. Should be an exciting game. There's a lot to unpack and break down about this matchup, and we're going to do it for you all right here on this episode of Around Paul. All right, fellas, so it is almost that time. 1,200-mile trip, little 1,200-mile business trip down to the Lone Star State. Clemson Tigers, Texas Longhorns, one of the great venues in college football, Darrell K. Royal Stadium, and all of this shaping up to be a Hollywood script for Clemson. So what are your thoughts on this one? Everybody seems to think Texas is just going to round up the Tigers and ride on out of town with a win, but I would be the first to say not so fast.
I agree. I think this is going to be a much closer game than people think. Garrett and I were talking about this last week, that this is a game where too many people have way too many close ties, and it starts with the quarterback of Clemson, Cade Klubnik, Austin, Texas native, played at Southlake, played Quinn Ewers, I believe it was 3 times in his high school career, won 3 times, won a state championship over him. So, I mean, it starts there, and we can go on and on with who's playing and whatnot, but I think this game is going to be close. It's going to be an interesting game just stylistically with how Texas plays under Steve Sarkisian and how well he coaches them and how interesting his play calls are to kind of just get defensive teams in a twist. But this Clemson team is just getting hot at the right time. They got that top 10 win over SMU, so that is another important thing to notice, especially the way that they, looking back at that Pittsburgh game, they were able to just fight. They were able to, although they blew that lead, they got that field goal. They found a way to win, and that was something that I was looking for. And even though they didn't get that stop, they just outscored SMU. I think that I feel a lot better about this game if compared to before the ACC championship than compared to after this game. I thought Clemson played a lot better than I thought, and you're going to see that against Texas. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to come down to it's going to be a nitty-gritty game. It's going to be close. I think, the more I look at the past 3 games of how Clemson's played, it's come down to how well their offense can play in the second half of games. And, they get out to this really fast start, and then something happens in the second half, and they have to hold on to win, or like they did at South Carolina, it kind of fell away at the last second. But, I think it's really going to come down to, can the offense and Cade Klubnik have a complete game? Because I really do, as crazy as it seems, and as bad as people are bashing the defense for not holding the lead, I think it comes down to that offense, and can they have a complete game? Because I think the defense can hold them off.
You know what? I'm going to say this, and I'm going to stand on this hill. Right or wrong, we'll find out on Saturday whether or not I'm right. I think SMU's offense is better than Texas. I think we faced a better offense in the ACC championship game than we're going to see on Saturday.
Well, that's what you're going to see out of these two teams, is that they like to do motion, they like to move that quick pass. The only difference, at least for now, because we have no idea, the wild card in this game, and that's going to be Arch Manning, is Kevin Jennings could use his legs, Quinn Ewers could not. He has a better arm, but Kevin Jennings was able to find more and better plays, and that's what you've seen with these rushing. I mean, look at Lenore Sellers in the Palmetto Bowl. Look at Kyron Drones, who found a little bit of that success. I mean, not to the extent that Sellers and Kevin Jennings did. And then look at Jennings. I mean, he had a great game, was able to lead a few that game back until Clemson, of course, scored that game-winning field goal. But I think that's where this could match up differently, is if they are able to get to Ewers, because he doesn't use his legs like Sellers, like Jennings do. So it's a little bit different compared to what you've seen out of the quarterbacks. But, I mean, again, you have to be prepared for both those guys, because Sark likes to throw Arch Manning in some random points in those games, and it's a huge catalyst, a huge spur, and he sometimes gets in the end zone from doing so. So you have to be prepared for both, but I feel a lot better. Like you said, Garrett, I do agree. I think that with a less mobile quarterback of yours, I think you could deal with them a lot better. But these offenses play the same. They're very quick, motion, everyone gets involved.
Yeah, from a few of the interviews that I watched, they do a lot of motion, a lot of. I think Dabo said in his presser that they go probably not a lot of plays without some type of motion, and so a bunch of eye candy. And I think Wes Goodwin said the same thing. There's a lot of eye candy that you got to deal with. So just got to have eye discipline and stay in the right places on defense. And then the offense has just got to move the ball, man. Just got to stay consistent the whole game.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And it's really, when you break this game down, it's quite simple. It's a Texas offense that really is not all that prolific when you break down the numbers. They're a better passing team than they are a running team, which I think kind of plays into the strength of Clemson's defense. And let's talk a little bit about Clemson's defense versus the Texas offense first and foremost. Looking at the stats for Texas, and you talk about them not being a prolific rushing team. Their leading rusher is Quintravion Wisner. Only 863 yards on the season, 3 touchdowns. Next up, you've got Jaden Blue. He's got 564 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's it. Their 2 leading rushers have combined for only 9 touchdowns. And we've already talked about Quinn Ewers and his lack of being able to hurt you in the running game. Out of every player who has had at least 1 carry for Texas this year, Quinn Ewers is dead last on the team in rushing, negative 62 yards. He averages negative 1.5 yards per carry. For a Clemson defensive line that has had some trouble stopping the run at times this year, to me, this is a game where they could really, really make a mark.
Exactly. And kind of looking at how the SEC turned out, looking at the stats for there, South Carolina finished third in the rushing offense. And Clemson was able to contain Raheem Sanders a lot better than at least what I thought going into the game. It was just that Sellers aspect. And if you ask me, I think if you make one of those tackles, I think that the game is completely turned the other way. I'm sure that the 3 of us can agree on that. It's just going to be a matter of because the running backs maybe aren't big in terms of numbers, but they like to use them out of the backfield, out of pass catching. They like to use those quick first down options, try to get 6-7 yards and get second and third and shorts and try to use it from there. So that's going to be the point of emphasis there. So again, like you said, Garrett, it's going to be all about eye candy. It's going to be all about if these linebackers are able to read the play. So that's why I'm looking at Sammy Brown. That's why I'm looking at Barrett Carter and Wade Wood, as if they're able to make a big impact on this game, blow up plays in the backfield, especially out of those running backs, you're going to force Ewers to have to use his arm. And I think that helps out a lot, especially with how the corners have been playing as of late. I think they're clicking a little bit better. But again, this Texas team is going to be talented. You have to cover everybody on the field. So, I mean, if you're able to get those stops on third down, I think that's going to be the huge change in this game. But I'm looking at the linebackers to blow up those plays, whether they're run plays or whether they're pass catching plays from these backs, because Texas doesn't run the ball a lot, Garrett. Like you said, they're not the best in the SEC in doing so.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I really can't differ. I mean, our linebackers have got to be great. I think you gotta play 3 linebackers to start out with.
Tell Wes Goodwin that.
Yeah, get them all on the field. I know. Well, he said it. He said it in his presser, so we'll see. So we'll see. I also think that the DBs have to, just continue playing how they're playing and play well. I think Terrell's got to be a little better, because I think he's gotten beat a little bit in the past couple games. And I think that's kind of to me that's kind of taken. Or I haven't really noticed Jaden Lucas that much because I've seen Terrell get beat a couple times where I'm just like, really? But, it's just kind of made me go, oh no. But I just think they got to play a little better. And but I agree. I don't think Texas can run the ball that well. And as long as we, play good defense, and again, I'm going to continue to say this through the entire episode, just stay steady on offense and don't have any lulls, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I think all valid points, and I agree with all of that. Now, I'm going to give you 3 players who, to me, are X factors for the Clemson defense in this ball game. One, it starts up front. T.J. Parker. T.J. Parker has wreaked havoc all year. I saw a stat. I believe he may lead the entire country in forced fumbles. If not, he's in the top 3 or 4. That's against some quarterbacks who are pretty mobile. What could this guy do against a quarterback in Quinn Ewers who is essentially a statue in the pocket? If T.J. Parker can get penetration, if he can get to Quinn Ewers, then I expect T.J. Parker to have a monster game on Saturday. Couple other guys, Sammy Brown, you've already talked about him. Right now, he's the best linebacker Clemson has, with no offense to Barrett Carter. Sammy Brown has just played better. And right now, he has just been a wrecking crew. And I think, as you talked about, Griffin, all of this eye candy and throws to the running backs, wheel routes and things coming out of the backfield, that's where Sammy Brown can play an important role. And then when you look to the Longhorns' downfield passing attack, here's another guy that, to me, is playing his best ball of the season right now, and that's Khalil Barnes back there in the secondary. Those 3 guys, if those 3 can have big games on Saturday, I really, really like Clemson's chances on limiting this Texas offense.
Yeah, I mean, Parker has had back-to-back games with a forced fumble. I mean, he did it against Jennings, he did it against Sellers. I think he did it on the first drive of both of those games, and that helped start the catalyst for Clemson, able to take that early lead against South Carolina, and the same thing against SMU, that really hot start. And that's going to be huge in this away environment. You have to keep them away. And that's something we haven't talked about yet, that this atmosphere in Austin is going to be perhaps the best away atmosphere that this team has played. I mean, look who has Clemson truly played away from home. I mean, you could look at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech were not really the best. All of Clemson's good games have been either in neutral sites. So, I mean, the Georgia game, AC championship game favored Clemson. You had the people from Dallas coming there, so it favors more the South Carolina side. And the South Carolina game, I mean, then again too, but at the same time, it was still Memorial Stadium. So this will be the most atmospheric game for Clemson, going to an away side. So I think that you have to get that crowd out. So getting to that hot start, forcing a fumble, I think it's going to fall a lot on T.J. Parker, like you said.
You said something about Virginia Tech just a little bit ago, and not to sidetrack, but in an interview I heard from Barrett Carter, he said Virginia Tech's the loudest stadium he's ever been in.
Fair. I was not there, so don't take my word for it.
Hey, I'm just taking words out of his mouth. Like, that comes straight out of his mouth.
I will speak somewhat from experience. I think I've mentioned this before. I was at the Clemson Virginia Tech game in 2017. It was college game day. It was a top 10 matchup. Clemson was ranked number 2, I believe. Virginia Tech was 9th or 10th, somewhere in that area. And during Enter Sandman, aside from maybe I was at the Clemson Louisville game in 2016, which is probably the loudest college football game, probably the loudest sporting event I've ever been to. The Clemson Virginia Tech game at Lane Stadium in 17 was not too far behind that.
Yeah.
When I tell you I was sitting about 5 rows from the top of Lane Stadium, and when Enter Sandman started, everybody started jumping. The stadium shook.
Yeah.
The actual foundation of the stadium, you could feel it move underneath you. And sitting up that high was a bit disconcerting. But, certainly I would have to think that 105,000 fans.
Oh, yeah, this Texas stadium
will hold. It is going to be at least comparable to that.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy, man. It's going to be nuts. Even Luna says so. Yeah.
You go, Luna.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, just final thoughts on how you think this Clemson defense stacks up the Texas offense. At the end of the day, when you look at the numbers, you break it down. Ewers is thrown for, let me take a look here, 2,665 yards. So certainly there are other quarterbacks around that have thrown for more yards than he has. But Griffin, when you break it all down, number by number, player by player, do you still see this as a favorable matchup for Clemson's defense against the Texas offense? Or is it really kind of more of a wash?
I think you have to favor a little bit more of the Texas side. Again, too, they have the home crowd behind them. Clemson has had a little bit of issues with missed tackling over the course of the season. I'm looking really at that Georgia game. That's kind of the only team you can really consider this team close to. Maybe South Carolina in terms of how they're able to run the ball. But again, I think that if you're able to limit those tackles at least, so again, I'm looking at the linebackers, the open field tackles, that because that's the way Texas makes their money. That's how they get their success, is those really long plays. The receivers and the running backs do the work. Ewers, I believe, has 7.5 air yards per throw, and that's fourth to last out of all of the college quarterbacks. So I'm not saying that Ewers has regressed. He has had a different role in this offense. So if you're able to give him some pressure, I think that it's going to be favorable. But I'm going to give this edge to the Texas offense. I think that they're way too multifaceted. You have the wild card of Arch Manning, two running backs that are able to kind of hurt you in different ways. Just what I've seen over the course of this season, I'm going to give the Texas offense the betterment of the doubt. Plus, you have one of the best offensive minds in the college football world in Sark. I think that he's going to get you at some points. It's just a matter about responding.
All right, fair enough. Good point. Well, next up, we're going to break down this Clemson offense against the Texas defense. But before we do that, let's hear a word from one of our great sponsors. All right, before we go any further, let's give a shout out to one of our fine sponsors, Venture Concrete in Greenville, South Carolina, where concrete meets excellence. Transform your property with the help of our expert concrete services. And at Venture Concrete Greenville, we pride ourselves on delivering top-notch, licensed, and insured concrete services to homeowners all over the Greenville area. From driveways to patios to building slabs, our team of trained professionals can handle any residential project with ease and expertise. Venture Concrete is owned and operated by Clemson Tigers, serving Clemson Tigers and the upstate of South Carolina. You are always on solid ground with Venture Concrete. All right, guys, on the other side of the ball, you've got this Clemson offense versus what is by all accounts an elite Texas defense. The numbers say that they're one of the top 2 or 3 defenses, and arguably by some metrics, maybe the best defense in the country. So maybe a little bit tougher sledding here for this Clemson offense. I want to start with the Clemson running game because that's the biggest uncertainty going into this one. You heard Dabo said it in his press conference today. Phil Maffa is still not 100% healthy. He'll have 2 weeks to rest, but he's going to be having surgery in the offseason. Jay Haynes confirmed today he tore his ACL against SMU. Kind of suspected that was the case. So really behind a banged-up Phil Maffa, the running back room is a lot of unknowns. You've got Keith Adams Jr., you've got Jarvis Green. But to me, one of the big X factors in this ballgame, and I see Cliff smiling. He already knows. I've already talked to a friend of mine about this he's just giddy with excitement over the possibility. And that is the coming out party, potentially, of David Eziume, the 4-star running back from Clemson's last recruiting cycle, who a lot of people have been clamoring to see on the field this year. Do we finally see the emergence of David Eziume to back up Phil Maffa?
It should be. It very well should be. You look at the only 2 Texas losses, they were to Georgia, and Georgia beat Texas both times completely differently than how they beat Clemson week 1, and that was just running the ball. Trevor Etienne, multi-touchdown games, both of those games. That's kind of just how you're going to have to get to it. And I've heard incredible things about Eziume as well. You do have Keith Adams Jr. as well, so maybe you switch up the tempo a little bit. That's just one way that I think that could happen. But if you're going to beat Texas, you're going to have to be successful in the running game. And though I thought Jay Haynes was going to be that guy behind Maffa, you're going to need someone to step up. And in moments like this, sometimes it's the freshman that doesn't really have much to lose compared to those guys that are on the top of the depth chart. I mean, just say, screw it. Do as good as you can, because this Texas defense is the best passing defense in the country.
And Cliff, not much to lose if you're Eziume, but Texas also doesn't have much film on him either.
No, not at all. And I'm going to be honest with you. How much film do we have on him?
Not a
Say
lot.
that.
And, yeah, not a
He's
lot.
a silent,
So
silent partner in this game.
exactly, like we don't have a lot of film on him either. So I don't know how good he can be, but I mean, you got his high school tape. That's about it. But yeah, man, I really could see him coming as the backup and being in that two slot. I know Dabo hadn't had a lot of hadn't had a lot of faith in anybody behind Maffa, but I think
Or maybe he was
Azuma
just holding this hand close to his chest and bluffing everybody else.
maybe. I hope
That'd be
that's
cool.
it. I know. I hope that's it, man. But I could see that happening, man. If Maffa can't get it done, like maybe Azume or however you say his name
As you
can Zume could get could maybe he's got his speed that he could use and get around the ends. So we'll see.
Yeah, and look, Clemson's offensive line too is essentially healthy. It's as healthy as it's been in a very long time, and you finally had that group back together against SMU 2 weeks ago. So that's a big factor too. With an untested running back room behind Phil Maffa, you're going to have to get good blocking. You have to have that good push up front. And so if there is one area where Clemson has gotten healthy and maybe has a bit more consistency and continuity, it's up front on that offensive line. And I think just in time for a game in which they're really going to need it.
I think, too, you're going to see a lot more of those design quarterback runs. I know Cade Klubnik didn't have many of those against SMU, but South Carolina a little bit. But, I mean, if you're Garrett Riley, I mean, this is something that I'm sure that you've had planned for, running back goes down, something like that. Why not use your quarterback? He was the top dual threat quarterback out of the class that he graduated in. That's something that I could be interested to see. I mean, a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder for Cade playing at home. I think why not? Why not just unleash the beast and see what you can do? But I'm more excited to see who's able to step up from this running back room because there's always one. When an opportunity presents itself like this, the biggest moment, one of those three guys, whether if it's Keith Adams Jr., whether if it's redshirt freshman Jarvis Green or David Aziumume, I think it's going to be easy E at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, on the other side of things, you've got this Texas pass defense that Griffin, you've already alluded to, is statistically the best in the country. Now, I will throw the caveat in there. Who have they played that I would really classify as a truly prolific air raid passing team? That's semantics. You can argue what you will, but Clemson's got a pretty dynamic trio of receivers who's going to put that to the test. And I'm not sure that Texas has faced three guys on the field at the same time that can stretch them thin like Antonio Williams, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore can. That's a pretty dynamic group right there and would test any secondary.
This is I'm going to say one thing. There could be a fourth receiver and I mean, you could say Brenningstool, maybe.
Yes.
You could throw him in there, and that could be four. I mean, I know he's hit or miss, but I mean, when he's on, he's on. So we'll see.
Yeah, again, I mean, you're kind of looking at who Texas have played offensively that look good. I'm looking at their schedule. Michigan, rush heavy. Oklahoma, rush heavy. I mean, I'm going to put that at a question mark. I don't really know. Georgia kind of shifted the way that they played. Carson Beck didn't really have a great game. In the first game, at least, that was in Austin. Vanderbilt, again, very rush heavy. Florida, that was kind of through that quarterback turmoil between DJ Lagway, Graham Mertz, whole whatnot, kind of getting Lagway more adjusted. So freshmen are going to have games like that. Arkansas, they're a little bit better, that pass heavy offense. A&M, again, rush heavy. Kentucky, I couldn't even Brock Vandagriff was not very good to me. So again, to your point, Garrett, I think that Texas haven't really played that Ole Miss, that Alabama, that you're looking for a defense to make a stop like that. Exactly. Those were the top three teams. South Carolina too. I would like to see how they play against them. But again, too, like Texas, Clemson do have the availability of having so many different receivers that can make plays, and I think that's going to be a very huge option because. I mean, I'm going to say one or two of them are going to be locked every play. You're going to have to find one of those guys. So whoever that may be, I think that's going to be important for them to make the plays.
And I'll just say from a personal preference standpoint, I really, really hope that Andrew Makuba gets smoked like a backyard Texas barbecue.
Hey, he put a big hit on Georgia's quarterback.
Yeah, too bad the targeting call was overturned.
I don't know if that was targeting, but
it wasn't targeting.
I beg to differ. Yeah,
I didn't think. Well,
it was just a great hit.
In the interest of honesty, I was watching the game when it happened, and I thought to myself, "There's no way this is targeting," and I would be highly, highly pissed off had that been called and then upheld against anybody on our team. Look, at some point, I don't care who's playing. Football is a contact sport. Let there be contact.
Yeah. And the quarterback put his head down a little bit. Like, he put his head down just a little bit. So he kind of put himself in that position.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, I'm not in the business of penalizing players for playing hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes big hits are unavoidable, and the laws of physics cannot be circumvented by human beings once they're in the act of making a tackle or diving for somebody. So, I hope Makuba gets cooked, and the fact that he's not going to miss any part of this game just gives him more opportunities to get roasted. So I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But we've broken it down on both sides. So we've said what can be said. Clemson offense versus the Texas defense and vice versa. Really, all that's left to do is to make some picks on this game. So, as always, Cliff, we'll start with you and work our way down. What you got?
So, I'm going to throw an X factor out there on defense. I'm going to go Peter Woods on defense. And I'm gonna say Brenningstool on offense. I think Brenningstool has to have a big game. And then what running back's going to show up after Maffa? But I think the score will be – I think it's going to be super close. It could be a game similar to the one we just had, except it stayed close the entire game. And I think that sides with us because we've been in close games the past three games. And I mean, Texas had a close game with Georgia, so they got a little bit of experience with that too. But I'm still going to go. Oh, by the way, side note, my pick on the ACC championship game, I was 1 point off on either team. I said 35-32, just by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. And
go immediately and buy me a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Or a scratcher, something.
Yeah. So on this one, I don't think I'm not sure with both defenses. I don't know if I want to go in the 30s or not. So I'm going to go 29 to 27 Clemson.
All right. I dig it.
I seem to have a lot of success when I picked the other team to win. Last week I picked SMU to win.
Yes, you did.
We all saw how that went. But again, I'm just going to give you my honest opinion about how this game goes. I think you're going to see a little bit of that Clemson hot start. I think that they kind of know what they need to do off the cut, and especially to a Texas team that suffered a little bit more of a heartbreaking loss. They were down backup quarterback, kind of came back and won them that game. So they may have a little bit more juice, but at the end of the day, I think that it's going to fall on this Clemson offense if they're going to stay consistent. My X factor for this game is going to be TJ Moore. It's one of those freshman receivers that stand out in games. Wesco had it last game. I'm going to give it to Moore. Maybe they pin Wesco down a little bit more, especially on that defensive side. On the defensive side for Clemson, I think it's going to be Barrett Carter being the X factor for this game. You know what you're getting out of Sammy Brown. Wade Woodhouse has been the most improved player. Barrett Carter has been very up and down, missed a lot of tackles. This is what he came back for. He came back to go to the college football playoff. This is his last game in a Clemson jersey, perhaps. That's another thing you got to keep in mind with a lot of these players. But I do think that Texas somehow, some way are going to find a way to win this game. Defense, I think they gave up a big play. My final score is going to be 27 to Texas, 23 Clemson. Close game, very close game.
All right, so the trend that we have here is all of these picks are going to be close, and mine is going to be no different. Again, as I said earlier, I think some of my X factors in this game, and I'm going to stick with them, is going to be TJ Parker up on the defensive line. Sammy Brown has already been talked about, and Khalil Barnes in the secondary, being able to come up and offer some support, these little swing passes out of the backfield that we know Texas is going to do. And on offense, Cade Klubnik, for me, I think it goes without saying. Griffin, you had a great point. You've got to mix him into the run game, some more of these design quarterback runs. We know he's very prolific at it. Far more of a dual threat than Quinn Ewers is, which to me I think kind of tips the scales a little bit toward Clemson's advantage. You know, it's a close game. It's not going to be a blowout either way. You know, if Texas fans or Paul Feinbaum or who the hell else out there in the national Clemson football hating world thinks that this is going to be a blowout, then they might as well go ahead and get their pity party queued up now, because it's not going to be. Texas may very well win this game, but they will have to scrap, claw, fight, tooth and nail in order to do it. With that said, I'm picking half with my brain, half with my heart. I've said why I think Clemson has an advantage in some places, why I think they can win this game, and I think the Tigers will find some way to pull it out at the end. It's going to be tied at 17. Late in the fourth quarter, Clemson's going to get a stop, and Cade Klubnik is going to do exactly as he did against SMU. He's going to make a big play, get the Tigers in position to win. Only this time, Nolan Hooser is going to get to watch as the Tigers score a touchdown with under a minute to play. Clemson 24, Texas 17.
Okay. I like
Quite cinematic.
I like it.
That's quite cinematic.
That is. I like that. I like that. I like that.
Just look, Matthew McConaughey, A-list superstars probably going to be on hand. So go ahead and write this. Go ahead and write the script right now. And when Klubnik scores a touchdown, just walk up to him and say, "Here's the script." All right.
I
You might not like that too much.
Yeah, he
That's
might.
awesome.
He might. I love it.
He is, of course, the Texas Longhorns' #1 super fan. So
Yeah, and a professor, like you said.
yes, a film professor at the University of Texas. Now, I might just have to go enroll at Texas just to take that class, but nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, all that's left to do now is for the Tigers to make the trip out to Austin, strap it up, and let's play a football game. And at least we know come about 8 o'clock on Saturday night, we're going to know the answer to whether everything we've talked about is true or not. So, hey, as always, we say it every time. It's a great day to be a Clemson Tiger. Go Tigers, and we will see you, Clemson Nation, deep in the heart of Texas.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.